Performance versus Incentive, a project by Candace Cao, Sarah Morgan, Manu Singhal, and Shannon Yan. The question we sought to answer through this project was whether students at Granada High are motivated by an incentive to solve a problem more quickly. Our theory was that when people have external motivating factors, they will work quicker as they anticipate a reward. In this case, candy would be the incentive. The problem that the students had to solve was to name as many countries as they could in 1 minute. To test the effects of being offered candy, we separated the students into two groups. One group of 30 students would be offered the incentive of candy if they could name at least 30 countries in 1 minute. The non-incentive group of 30 students was simply asked to name at least 30 countries in 1 minute, and no incentive was mentioned.
Now we have a video of some students we interviewed, and let's just take a look of how they did their 1 minute challenge.
Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Germany, North Korea, South Korea, China, Russia, Poland, Spain, France, Italy, Libya, Liberia, South Sudan,
India, what? Spain, the United States, France, Italy, Germany, Aruba, I don't know.
United States, Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico, Canada, Russia, Japan, China. Is Hong Kong a country? I don't know.
Canada, Mexico, Uruguay, Paraguay, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Puerto Rico, Philippines, India,
Uzbekistan, Ukraine, France, the UK, Ireland, Iceland, North Korea, South Korea, China, India, Mongolia,
Bhutan, Nepal, Taiwan, Mongolia, North Korea, South Korea, Japan. How much time do I have left?
Canada, United States, Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil, Argentina, Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Spain, Portugal, Serbia, Bosnia, Greece, Albania, Russia,
Iceland, Greenland, Madagascar, Australia, Africa.
And this is a fun fact, that there's more than 12% of our test subjects listed Africa as a country. And now we're on this data table with 4 categories, and the reason why we're dividing non-incentive and incentive groups to different groups is because we want to minimize the bias, and also to have a look of the difference between the results of boys and girls. So now we have 15 students in each group, so like 30 in non-incentive and 30 in incentive group. And by looking at the table, like the X-bar of boys non-incentive group and the X-bar of boys incentive group are pretty similar, but when we have a look of the data we got, there isn't any outlier in the non-incentive group. But the boys non-incentive group, there are 3 pretty great outliers. So number 2 and number 4 and number 6. So what we can tell is they're pretty much balancing each other out. So like we have this higher X-bar value. And let's see girls non-incentive and girls incentive groups. The X-bar of girl incentive group is clearly higher than the girls non-incentive group. So what we can conclude from this data table is that the average of incentive groups is greater than the average of non-incentive group.
Next, we are going to discuss inference procedures. First, we have our population and parameters. We have mu incentive, which is the true mean number of countries a student at Granada High School can name in 1 minute when offered an incentive of candy. We also have mu non-incentive, which is the true mean number of countries a student at Granada can name in 1 minute when not offered any incentive. Our null hypothesis is that there would be no difference in the mean number of countries listed if an incentive was offered. Our alternative hypothesis is that students with incentives can list more countries in contrast to not being offered candy. We will be conducting a two-sample t-test for means with a significance level of 0.05. Our experiment meets most of the conditions required. Because we used convenience sampling, neither sample was technically an SRS, so we will proceed with caution. Our sample is independent because there are around 2,000 students at Granada, which is a lot larger than our sample size of 60 times 10. Both samples, the incentive and non-incentive, are independent of each other. We ensured this by sampling without offering an incentive first, so people wouldn't know that there would later be an incentive. Because both samples are equal to 30, the samples can be considered approximately normal by the central limit theorem. Finally, we have our calculations. As listed on our screen, we have our formula, and through our calculating, we got a p-value of 0.3948. We failed to reject our null hypothesis because our p-value is greater than the significance level of 0.05. There is insufficient evidence to assume that there is a difference between the mean number of countries a Granada student can name in 1 minute when offered versus when not offered an incentive of candy. Therefore, to answer our initial research question, Granada students are not motivated by an incentive to solve a problem more quickly.
The main obstacle we encountered during our study was the need to distance participants from each other. If some participants heard possible responses just before answering, our data would not provide accurate conclusions. Non-response may have led to skewed results. And finally, disruption and influence, such as peers creating distractions or shouting out answers, likely influenced the data we collected. The mean number of countries named was higher among both female and male participants when they were offered an incentive. However, this difference was not statistically significant, as we failed to reject the null hypothesis. This suggests we may want to reconsider offering rewards for performing at an above-average level, because incentives likely do not truly increase the ability to respond quickly or accurately.